My friend Juan and I just finished processing all of these black walnuts. You can see the stain in the hands. They need to dry and cure, but they are now on their way towards being really reliable food security and enjoyment for us for the winter. And these, if they're dried properly and stored properly, will last years and years. In this video, I'm happy to explain our step-by-step process of how we went from collecting them to this stage of pretty well clean and ready to dry. So if that's of interest, stick around. We are lucky enough to have the abundance of black walnut in our region, and along the sides of roads there's tons of trees that on certain years make lots and lots of crops. Sometimes people even put the effort into using a leaf bag to accumulate black walnuts for us or for whoever picks them up. Believe it or not, these are all filled with 40 to 60 pounds of walnuts in the husk. So the work to do is to remove the husk from these, rinse off the material, and start the drying process. I'll link throughout this video to past videos about black walnuts so you can see some other ways that we've gone about this in the past. For today, what I'm going to do is take these walnuts in the husk and simply put them on the driveway with a little bit of a retaining bumper so that our car can go back and forth over them. I'm just going to put them in the driveway now, and then we'll drive over them just as a matter of course over the next day or two, and that will knock most of the husks off. It's a north sloped driveway, so I'm putting a little wooden bumper to keep them from rolling right out into the road. It's pretty incredible that these bags are just filled with walnuts that somebody else did. I really appreciate that they did that. I wonder if they'll ever get into eating these things. Well, at least the food is there if they ever need it. But for now, I'll take their effort and translate it into our nourishment and really appreciate them for having done it. It's a pretty crazy amount of walnuts from these bags. I'm only a little more than a third of the way through dumping them. And so pretty amazing. But then beyond that, these bags, we've got a nice pile of wood chips elsewhere. These bags are really wet, so they're not going to be good for us to dry down and use for insulation for shipping, which is what we do when they're dry, but they can be used for sheet mulching. So once we're done dumping all these, we'll be able to convert this over to future beds in the landscape by laying them out over weedy areas and burying them in leaves and wood chips. So, man, so many yields.
Oh my gosh, so
I took my truck out to do some errands, and so that drove over some of these walnuts twice. I'm realizing the truck is heavy enough. That's not the right tool because it busted, not all of them, but it busted, I don't know, 10%, 20% of the ones I drove over, especially right there where it hopped over the stick. So if too heavy of a vehicle to drive on walnuts, you're gonna crack them instead of just getting the husk off. But the ones that were driven on in the right way, the husk is now loose and this can go on to the next phase. So it's a fair bit of work, but I'm trying to get the nuts to that stage and then I can wash them. This is a good project for more folks. But what I'm doing is going through, you can see the staining is beginning, picking out the shells, the husks, the debris. That'll get shoveled up and sent into the chicken yard. There's lots of little husk maggots and worms and things the chickens can enjoy. And I know the concern is, oh, black walnuts, so poisonous, blah, blah, blah. I've never seen that be the issue. There's tons of minerals in there, and in our composting system, it'll work out well. And you can see the nuts, they're still going to need abrasion and washing, but this first process of breaking the husk and having them fall off and getting that material out before we do the agitation and the washing saves a lot of time. I'm about 10 minutes into this project in its entirety, and we've got that many already plucked out. So it's slow, but at the scale, we're looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of little nuts. And 10 of them at a meal makes you feel satisfied. So this is a lot of food security and pleasure for the winter. It is worth the effort. Getting through it a little bit, making some headway. We're about an hour in, drove back and forth a few times. You can see the piles of husks set to the side, the nuts tossed into the container. Pretty fruitful, nutful thus far. Halfway through a bulb crate here, and likewise on the other side. That's about as much as I want to fill them because that's pretty heavy. Got more husks to deal with, and just kind of parsing through, get on my knees, shovel a nice pile, get the husks aside, the nuts in, and then the ones that need to be driven over, thrown back into the 2 wheel ruts. The chickens really enjoy going through the husks. They pick through and look for last little bits of worms, all sorts of life in there. And that'll integrate into the soil. I've never seen this hurt our earthworm population. I do not believe that the juglone issue is toxic in the composting process. It seems to mainly be in the living root exudate of the black walnut trees, and maybe the really, really fresh leaves, the fresh husks around certain plants. But in our chicken yard, this should be nothing but beneficial. It has been for years. Getting through it and making it a little more organized for the tracks of the car to crush the rest. But we got a couple of bulb crates that are nice and filled, ready for the next stage, which we'll talk about once we get there. Did a bunch of the walnuts with the car, but here you can see Juan is demonstrating the foot style. Thank you, Juan, for an excellent demonstration. But this is a way to go about it if you have a smaller number of nuts. Now that we're in the home stretch, instead of turning the car on and going again, they're pretty close, so we can use our feet to bust them up. And then plucking them out is pretty easy. And this is what has been readied for washing and cleaning so far. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bulb crates that are as heavy as I'd like to carry them, filled with nuts. So pretty significant amount so far. Juan is scooping up the last of the husks to send to the chickens. And we're done with this first phase. All the nuts have been cracked out of the husks and ready for washing. So they're not going to shrink from here. This is the actual good sense of the yield, just a little bit of dirt on the surface, but that gives you a sense of, I think in total that was like 4 solid hours of work to get to this stage. Nice pile. Each of those bulb crates is 30 pounds or so. And we'll go to the next steps. I'm procrastinating so Juan can do all the scooping. Pretty wonderful how much the chickens enjoy this stuff, and it makes me appreciate processing the husks off the nuts in a dry state, doing that as a first move like we did in this video. It's a lot cleaner. The driveway's going to come off a lot cleaner, and what the chickens are working through is less mucky and murky. They're finding a million little worms, and they're integrating that husk material into the composting pipeline. Red wigglers will be working into it next. They enjoy this pulp. Lots of yields, that's for sure. Phase 1 is done. Chickens can work on the rest. Now we got to figure out getting these all washed and abraded and curing. That is the end of this stage of the project. There are 12 bulb crates, each with a goodly sum of walnuts, clean enough to start the drying process. I don't think I'm going to try to get into this video all the different steps for drying. Right now we've got them in these bulb crates. They're on an asphalt driveway. If it's sunny, it's not that sunny today, but if it's going to rain, we have to bring them in. If it's going to be sunny and breezy, which it has been doing quite a bit lately, we can leave them out here and just watch for squirrels taking interest. If we just left them to cure fully out here, we'd lose probably 100% to squirrels and chipmunks. But for now, we can leave them like this. The bulb crates are nice because we can rock them back and forth to let some debris out and roll them around. We can also stack these in the garage and aim a fan at that. So that might be our curing process. If we do something fancier, I'll share more notes, but that is a lot of walnuts for, yes, some effort, probably about 8 hours in total, but quite worthwhile when you think about an adult can feel pretty satisfied eating about that many as a meal. So this is many, many, many filling sides to a meal for the next few years. Thanks for watching.